This isn't really a jazz scale lesson. I think scales and how you associate scales with chords is really the topic of a lot of online lessons and also a lot of online discussions. And I know it's also the topic of one of my most viewed videos, but at the same time, I think we're also overemphasizing the importance of this. I think there are other things that are way more interesting to check out and more important to have in your skill set. And yeah, I think if you start looking at some of the solos of some of the famous people that we listen to and that we admire, then you will also see that they're actually focusing on something else. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. My name is Larsen, learn jazz, make music. When you're improvising, you're playing lines that fit with or relate to the chords that are happening under your solo. And that means that it's important that, of course, the chord that you're improvising over needs to be a part of the scale that you're using. But maybe the other notes are not as important. So first, let's just look at what it means for a line to really follow the changes and spell out the harmony. A G minor 7 line might sound something like this. This is the kind of G minor 7 line that you would expect to run into if you're playing a 2-5-1 in the key of F major, or if you're playing sort of a G minor 7 that's in a Dorian situation, so a static G minor 7 chord. And this locks in with the changes and is really related to the G minor chord because we have on the heavy beats, so on beats 1 and 3, chord tones of the chord. We have the third on 1 and the fifth of beat 3. And for the rest, there are a lot of chord tones mixed up in the melody. So I'm playing all 8 notes, but most of the notes I'm playing are actually chord tones. So we have the third, the root, and then third, fifth, seventh, root, and then I'm ending on the third up here. So mostly this consists out of the notes of the G minor 7 chord, and in that way the melody also sounds like a G minor 7 chord. This is especially important if this is part of a solo on a moving progression. So that could be something like this. In this example, the harmony is spelled out so clearly in the melody that actually you can hear this without the backing track, and you can still hear that the harmonic movement is there. So you can really hear that the chords are a part of the melodies and that they really fit with and spell out that harmony. And having that skill, being able to play lines that really relate to the chord in that way, is something that's fairly important when it comes to playing jazz. In the context of this 2-5-1 in the key of F major, then the scale that I'm using on G minor 7 is essentially just this F major scale played from G. If we look at the notes in there, then the first 4 notes that we already have discussed that are important are the 4 notes of the chord. So that would be G, B flat, D, and F. And then we have 3 notes left, that would be A, C, and E. Now these notes are the extensions. So they are colors that you can use on top of the G minor chord, but they're not necessarily going to help you really spell out the sound of the chord in the same way. To give you an example of this, let's first just listen to a line that's really using sort of the basic G minor sound, and then the same type of melody, but then really relying much more on the extensions. So that would be kind of like an A minor sound. So most of the time when we're using the other notes, the extensions, then we're actually using them much more as diatonic passing notes or as leading notes, rather than just notes that we're really targeting, that we're really using to bring out the chord, because we use sort of the more basic chord tones to do that. And an example of a melody that's using passing notes and leading notes like this could sound something like this. So here I'm first targeting the B flat, and I'm doing that with the 2 notes around it. So, and then we get just some basic arpeggio notes. So G, B flat, F, D, and then another leading note, A, resolving down to the root G. So this means that the important part of what we need here is usually just going to be the chord tones. And that means that you can also sometimes just choose to not think about any scale and just think about the chord tones and play leading notes to those chord tones. I have a few examples of this in the videos where I'm analyzing solos. There's especially one with the Herbie Hancock solo, but there's also one that's pretty clear in the George Benson solo, and there's this example from his solo on Billy's Bounce. And here he's improvising on G minor 7, C7 in a blues in F, and this is the G minor line. First we just get the third, then a low leading note up to the fifth, then we get an encircling of the root, and then 2 more chord tones that he's actually using to point towards the E, so the third of C7, and making that really clear. And this also really fits with the way of improvising that Pat Metheny is talking about in this masterclass.
Also, I think it's good in talking about playing on changes. So often people get caught up in chord scales. But don't forget that if you just play arpeggios of the chords, it's going to sound great. Especially if you can do it pretty fluently. If you can really connect chords, like not just arpeggios, but using just the root, third, fifth, and seventh. Limit yourself to only those notes of the chords. You're going to find that you're playing much hipper melodies than if you're playing, da 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 all the time.
So I guess what I'm trying to say with this video is that I think it's much more important that you can play lines that connect with the harmony, that makes sense and really contain sort of the right notes at the right time, than that you know which scale you're using. And as you can see with the George Benson example, you don't even really need to use a scale. You can just use the notes of the chord and then think of everything else as leading notes, and then you'll be just fine. It ties into another thing that I think is really important, and that is that the important information of a scale is really what harmony is in there. That's what you need when you're improvising. You need those arpeggios. And if you want to check out a video where I'm going over how you're connecting the information of a scale with the information of the arpeggios and the harmony that's found in there, then check out this video.